The second feature film that has been that has been selected at this festival that was curated by Mami is Nasir. Now, Nasir is a Tamil film and it is made by Arun Karthik. The one question that really I left this film with was, how do you sleep at night?
It's a very powerful piece of work. I mean, in some ways, there are connections with Ibaliu, and we're talking about sort of naturalism as acting style, and the fact you could walk into the middle of it and think that it was a documentary about real life on the streets. Both of these films are kind of like Trojan horse movies. I guess Ibaliu is a Trojan ape movie, but Trojan horse movie in that they start out as one thing, and you think it's going to be that kind of film, and then somewhere along the line it changes or it reveals a different facet to its storytelling and becomes much more complex and gives you really something you can get your teeth into. And the thing about Nasir is that it starts out as this very observational slice of life, day in the life of a clerk who works in a garment store, and you think, well, okay, this is interesting, but I'm not quite sure where it's going. And then, as the film goes along, it becomes much more serious and much more troubling. And the reason that is that Arun Karthik opens up the background of every frame. I mean, in terms of shot selection, in terms of sound mixing, and the choices that he's making with those individual shots. And it's often sort of shots of pretty everyday things. So like the radio cassette player in his room, or the pot plant in the corner. And you're sort of sitting there for the first 15 minutes going, okay, well, why am I being shown that? And you start thinking, well, what is it telling me about this character? What does it tell me about his life? Why are we being pointed in that particular direction? But every single one of those shots says something about the main character.
Yeah.
And, the conversations in the background of the shots, you're being pushed in a particular way. And I did think about 15 minutes in, I thought, you know what? You could show this film in film school to students, and you could teach it as a model of directorial precision. A director who's absolutely in control of everything that passes in front of his camera, who knows the reason for those shots and is slowly revealing them to you.
Absolutely. It's one of those films where the screenplay really demands you to surrender to it. You have to trust it. You have to trust the screenplay and let it guide you. I'm not even saying that you need patience to watch this film. It's you won't be impatient watching this film because it does really suck you in, but you have to surrender to it and you have to let it work its magic. And there is so much magic. Again, it's one of those films where without saying the obvious, there is so much that it is saying. It's like an anti-Twitter where everybody is just like yelling and angry and like talking about all the things that they're mad about. This film is also talking about all the things that it's mad about, but it's not yelling at you. It's respecting your intelligence, and it is just showing you the reality of this man. Yeah, like you said, like this is also like Ibaliu. It's a day in the life of, even though this is Ibaliu was over a period of time, and this is literally, I think, a day in the life of Nasir. All the events of this film happened. I just loved this character. I just loved the way they wrote Nasir. If you have to make a checklist of what is a good man respects his wife. A good man respects his work. A good man maybe respects his God. A good man, here this person is not just a good man. He's gone one step beyond, and he's caring for a special needs child. He's caring for an older mother, and he's not complaining. He's not whining. He's not frustrated. He's not angry, because many times cinema and any television fall into the trap of showing up because this person is laden with misfortune. This person is angry, and the anger is justified. This person is not angry. This person is just living their lives the best way they can. And yet that is where the film confuses you a little bit, that, all right, I'm seeing this man who's doing all the right things. Why? And that's when it just kind of grabs you by the collar and shows you, this is why you need to know that this man is doing all the right things. We're the ones who are stopping him from enjoying what should rightfully be his.
I think if I was going to define that character in a sentence, it would be that he's a character who doesn't know what's coming up around the corner. He's living his own life. He's doing the things that he's done, and you sense that he's done those things. He's gone to work every morning for many years. He said goodbye to the wife. he's bought his tea at a particular spot, and yet he doesn't know what's coming up around the corner. And that's, I think, what's extraordinary about that performance is that it's a performance where the actor has to live in the moment, in that specific second, in that specific scene, and not give away anything that's coming up down the line. Because I think one of the points that Aaron Kartik makes here is that, history has a horrible way of sneaking up on us. We sometimes find ourselves caught up in things that we're not expecting. And, those kind of days begin with someone pottering around a house, someone putting, a tape on the cassette player and listening to that while he's having breakfast and going out to get tea. It's all those little things that sort of build up. And it's a film that works by accumulation. It's all those small, but brilliantly observed details, very precisely observed details. And I'm sure, there will be people watching this who sit down with it and think within the first 10 minutes, okay, this is it's operating on such a low key. Why am I being shown these things? Why am I seeing someone just sort of pottering around the house? But once you ask yourself that question, then it takes you into an interesting place, and I think the precision of those images and the things you hear off camera, he has a great way of opening up. It's a very small, sort of narrow academy frame with sort of rounded corners, but he has a way of opening up that frame to give a sense of the turbulent world that's going on around this character. It's not as closed off as you first think. There is a sense of a wider world out there that's much more turbulent and unpredictable than the lead character thinks.
What made Nasir so amazing an achievement is because Arun Kartik, he has observed this, he has felt this, and he's showing you his observations in the most authentic ways that he can. That's why he starts with those really long shots of just an empty lane. It's just an empty lane. It's just the camera is just watching an empty lane, and you're watching with it. And then you start to notice the little observations that he has made. Like, for instance, those pots, the plastic pots that they carry the water in. Now, those are so prominent in multiple shots. And you realize that these plastic pots are only limited to this side of life where people do not have running water in their home. So these plastic pots are manufactured for somebody who needs plastic and something that will not corrode over time, because they are not going to get running water for a long, long time. So they need plastic pots to carry water from the tanker to their homes. And I thought that was so amazing that they're shown so prominently, because it's an observation that Arun Kartik made of the area and how people live there.
He knows these streets. I mean, sometimes you get a sense watching a movie that the filmmaker has never been to a particular place before and is discovering it in front of you. Sometimes you obviously go and see films where filmmakers have no idea where they are, full stop. But this is an example of a film where I believe he grew up on these streets. He knows that, how the lay of the land, if you like. He knows those little back alleys. He knows the best way to get into town or whatever. And it's a film that shows you that. And there's a degree of knowledge going on behind the scenes, which hooks you very early on and keeps you watching, even when you're thinking, well, why am I seeing something so sort of low key? You always sense that he knows where he's going and he knows where this story is going. And he takes you there by the hand.
In one scene when he's on his scooter and he's going from the shop to the hostel to deliver the blazers. And by that time, you've kind of gotten used to this God voice, this transistor-like voice that just kind of keeps coming. Somebody is talking about the virtues of Allah, and this other man is talking about the virtues of a Hindu God. And while he's standing on that red light, not even paying attention to what's going on because he's so lost in the fact that he has to make a sale today, the car behind him has a sticker that says "Glory to God," which is yet another religion. He's surrounded by this various kind of communal and religious things around him without it even penetrating his mind, because he doesn't have the luxury of thinking about anything except where am I going to make my next 1,000 rupees from.
It's a case where it's not the shape of the frame, it's what you do with it. And boy, does he stock it deep with all these details and the voices off and things like that. I mean, I don't think I've seen this year a film that packs so much into the smallest of spaces. You could look at any corner of those frames and spot something that tells you something about this guy, either this guy himself or the world in which he's living in. There's a brilliant thing where, again, he's just walking out in the morning. You see a man in the background reading a newspaper. You immediately know that that's where you'd find that guy at 7:15 every morning, sitting there reading the newspaper. There is a sense that, Aaron Carthick absolutely knows that world. And when you have a director like that who is showing you, there is something inherently compelling about that. So even if there aren't exploding helicopters or gunfights breaking out, you're hooked by the fact that someone is showing you around their town and telling you something about how that town operates, how it all connects up, and how it connects to the world.
To talk about the women in this film, again, they've not been shown in, they're not looked down upon. They are not sorry creatures. They're, in fact, even the saleswoman who works at the shop with Naseer, she knows that people are probably gossiping about her. She doesn't care. She's on her phone, she's playing her games, and she's talking to her boyfriend, and she doesn't care. In one shot, you see her, and this is such a sneaky dialogue, like most people will not even catch it. But while the camera is kind of going around and everybody's trying to make a separate sale, she's standing in a corner and she's talking to her mother and her young daughter, trying to sell them better looking underwear at the same price. So the saleswoman doesn't have anything to gain because it's at the same price. And when the mother refuses, she just gives a sorry glance to the young girl who is hoping to buy this better looking underwear at the same price, but her mother will not let her. Now in that, it's such a sneaky moment, and it just says so much about just female solidarity that is required in a community to survive like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's full of little character details like that, and things you glimpse in passing and things you might not see. I mean, I do think this is one of those films that benefits from, if you've watched it once, watch it again, because you will know now where it's heading, and so everything will seem as though it's leading up to that. There will be things that you miss along the way, things tucked away in the corner of the frame, little conversations that go on. That Naseer writes a letter to his wife, or composes a letter in his head, the significance of which isn't really sort of fully revealed until the very end. And so it's full of those things that you might shrug off at the time and you might overlook. But I think if you go back and take another look at it, you'll get an entirely new perspective on this one. Because, like I say, every corner of that small academy frame is crammed with some telling detail.
So again, for Naseer also, guys, I would say I do not know if it's going to be on any OTT platforms anytime soon, but if it is the first opportunity you get, please, you have to absolutely watch this Arun Karthik film. It is in Tamil, but I'm pretty sure there will be all kinds of subtitles available for you to watch this film.